The Senate floor clerks are reading all 940 pages of the big, beautiful bill out loud as part of a Democratic stalling tactic.
This after Senate Republicans narrowly voted to advance Trump's agenda last night, pushing the legislation finally into its final hours of debate.
And Chad Pergram joins us live from Capitol Hill with the latest. Chad, it's so good to have you on to help us break it all down. So we know they were reading this thing overnight, hopefully not falling asleep, which sounds like the most likely outcome of that. But what else is going on? What's holding up? What are the senators that are, holding their votes? What do they want from the president? We saw Ron Johnson came back over and said, OK, I'm going to vote for it over some Medicaid stuff that he got changed. But what are the other holdouts?
Yeah, right now, we think that they will probably be able to have the votes. As I always say, it's about the math. So they got 51 votes last night to move forward. This was a test vote just to start debate on the bill. And, there were two Republican no's, Tom Tillis, Republican of North Carolina, and Rand Paul, Republican of Kentucky. President Trump, he excoriated Rand Paul on Twitter, on Truth Social, I should say. But he really tore into Tom Tillis, saying that he was grandstanding and indicating that maybe he should deserve a primary challenge. So right now, they could pass the bill as is if they get Ron Johnson. Sometimes people vote to proceed to a bill. They vote on a procedural vote. They vote yes. But even if it came down to 50-50, they would still have the votes because Vice President Vance could break the tie. And that's one of the reasons that he came to the Capitol last night, because they thought they might need that vote because there were 3 Republican nays on the board. So right now, they're in the middle of reading this bill. This started at 11:08 last night. What happens is you have this rotation of reading clerks on the dais on the lower right of the screen, and they literally read the bill out loud. You talked a few minutes ago about perfume. Well, I wonder if these guys, like the opera singers, might have, taken a shot of perfume in the mouth there, but they certainly have the Hall's throat lozenges and Cepastat ready to go, but they rotate every so often. And the interesting thing is that very few senators, if any, are in the chamber listening to this. This happened all night. And technically, this is what's supposed to happen. They're technically supposed to read the bill out loud. There are what they call 3 readings of a bill. And in the old days, there was only one copy of the bill. It was written on parchment paper. They did this with a scroll and a quill. So, if you didn't actually see the bill, you could heard it read, and it was pretty short. And you got 3 chances to be in the chamber to hear it. What routinely happens is the clerk reads just the title of the bill, and then somebody asks unanimous consent to say we're going to terminate the reading of the bill. That happens almost constantly. And so here, Chuck Schumer objected, and that is his right, and you're allowed to, have them read the bill. The last time this happened was in March of 2021 on the $1.9 trillion coronavirus bill, and it was Ron Johnson, the Republican from Wisconsin, who objected and made them read the bill. So here's the timetable. They get through this reading, which we don't really know how long that's going to be. We're thinking sometime in the middle of the day, maybe 12, maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The Ron Johnson situation in 2021, that took 10 hours and 43 minutes. And then they go to up to 20 hours of debate. Now, we don't think that they will take all of that time. And then you go to what's called a vote-a-rama. A vote-a-rama is where they vote, and they vote, and they vote. And this can be a little bit organic because sometimes people offer amendments and they can change the bill. And maybe there's an amendment to the bill that somebody doesn't like, and it alters the bill, and they're like, I can't vote for this now. Or maybe somebody who is on the fence, the amendment is adopted, and they say, hey, that's good, so I'm for the bill now. And then you go to final passage. We thought that the final passage vote, and again, this is very hard to read. I looked deep into my crystal ball right now, but I tell you, it's in the shop, and it has a bad fuse. We were thinking maybe in the very early hours of Monday morning, maybe about 5:45, 6 o'clock. I think it's going to be later than that, probably during the daylight hours. And then, because this is a very different product from what the House of Representatives approved in May, they have to process this and send it back across the Capitol. And remember that there's a lot of House Republicans who don't like this. They like the House bill. They could only pass that version of the bill with 1 vote back in May. And so if you're going to get this done by the 4th of July, they have to sync up. And, guys, the House pretty much has to take the Senate version if they're going to get this done this week.
Any indication on the House side whether or not they would take whatever revised version the Senate comes up with?
You know, I talked to multiple members last week who were very skeptical of this. Chip Roy, Republican of Texas, was very vocal against this. Michael Cloud, Republican of Texas. You had some others. Eric Burleson, Republican of Missouri. You know, they say, look, you know, this is the bill that we passed. We thought it was going to get better in the Senate and then come back to us. They would argue, and this is what Chip Roy said on Friday afternoon, it got worse. Right. But here is the magic bullet. You know that President Trump, he really lays into these Republican members. And that's the best whip that Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, has in the House of Representatives. You know,
I'm glad you mentioned that, my friend, because let's face it. If the president says he's going to come after you, he really can come after you. And I'm not looking at Tom Tillis. And look, Rand Paul is Rand Paul. We've expected that. We all know Ron. We all know Rand. Tom Tillis has really been a bit of a thorn in the side of the Trump agenda, according to the president. Do you really believe this will end up in him really coming after him by way of a primary if he doesn't go along to get along?
Potentially. Keep in mind that's a swing state, and if you were to nominate somebody further to the right of Tom Tillis, that might put that state more in play. You know, maybe if the Democrats have somebody who can win statewide, you know, that state, you know, it went for President Obama, you know, some years ago, but it's trended a little bit more to the right in the past several years, certainly with President Trump. But you just never know. And again, there's been the same threat to go after Thomas Massey, you know, because he voted against the bill last time in the House. There were, and also you had, you know, Andy Harris, who's the chair of the Freedom Caucus, Republican of Maryland, who voted present. There were certainly some people who didn't like the bill. And here's another thing. It's just not the conservatives, the people who want to save more money. Mike Lawler, Republican of New York, he is very pleased with what they call the SALT agreement in the Senate.
We talked about that.
For state and local taxes. But some other folks, Nick LaLota, Republican of New York, he seemed a little bit cooler on that. I'm not saying he's a no necessarily.
Right.
But yeah, that's going to be something to watch. So you might have it at the polls here on the spectrum. Right. Moderate Republicans and conservative Republicans. And it's about the math.
Chad, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Always great to see you, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.